Hello, everybody, and a very warm welcome to Cultural Communication Confidence with me, Victoria Reynoldson. And I'm really excited to welcome my guest today, Vanessa Dal Busco. Welcome, Vanessa, to the show.
Thanks so much, Victoria. Very happy to be here.
Amazing. Well, Vanessa, I was really excited to have you on the show because I think what you're doing is very inspiring. You're doing some really exciting work with leaders and in leadership. But more about that in a minute. Could you share a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then a bit of your journey as well?
Yes, I'd love to. Thank you. So I'm Vanessa Dal Busco. My current roles, I'm a consultant. I'm director of membership at City Wealth Publishing. My other clients are in the technology and finance space. I've been consulting for around 6 years now. And before that, it was large tech companies, global tech companies in a mixture of marketing and business development roles.
Fantastic. And of course, we met through the IOD, the Institute of Directors. Would you share a bit about what you do in that capacity as well?
I'd love to. So that's one of my voluntary roles, and that's been happening for around 6 years, along with my consulting career. And I felt quite lucky actually to volunteer for the IOD. It's a membership organization. It has around 20,000 members in the UK in 33 regions and branches. So I'm a volunteer in London. I was a marketing ambassador, and around excuse me, 3 years ago, we started the Glass Ceiling Group, which advocates for more women in leadership positions. And we also have the remit to increase and retain more female members in the IOD itself.
I love that. And that was how we originally met. I've been lucky enough to be part of the Glass Ceiling Group and speak at the Glass Ceiling Group. But I'm really curious about why this is such an important cause for you, why women in leadership, and why you're there championing from the grassroots.
Yes, thank you. And your event was sold out, very, very popular event on that cultural communication piece down in the wine bar. I think it was maybe in April. Um, Thanks for coming and speaking. The reason that it became important to me, as I had no background in activism or really women's rights or not-for-profits, is because I'm a woman in business, so it directly affects me. And at the IOD itself, when we started, it was around 80% male. And those males, the average age, I think, was maybe around 50. So there was a COO who was there, whose name was Esther Teakin, and Esther rebranded the IOD, and along with the rebranding, it was part of her priority to make it more diverse. So the first characteristic that we wanted to focus on was women because it's easily measurable. Everybody selects their gender when they join the IOD, and in Companies House, you also the gender's identified. So from 80% males, we knew we had a big task to do. We were aiming for 53% of women, if the population is women. So ideally, we would love to have 50% of the IOD members being female. However, since we started, we have now reached 30% of all new joiners being female, which I think is a fantastic achievement. Another reason it was important to me to do this group was because there's a plethora of women's groups out there, especially now. There's so many organizations advocating for women in leadership. We wanted to do it at the IOD. Each women's group has its own priorities. We wanted to one advocate for more women in leadership positions, as I've mentioned. Also, one of our goals is to provide a platform for female leaders to meet and network together, which is a hugely important part of that progression. And we also wanted to shine a spotlight on female leaders and give them a platform to kind of raise their personal profile, which is another thing I'm super passionate about in my day job.
Absolutely. And, I love what you do there. I think you bring together really amazing group of very exciting and talented female leaders across multitude of different sectors and industries, both directors of their own businesses as well as directors in some of the large multinational organizations as well. And I find that really interesting. So, what is on the mind of female leaders right now? What kind of things are you hearing in the conversations, in the meetups? What is the kind of challenges and questions people have?
I think it's a really important point you make about the scope and breadth of the membership. So 70% of IOD members are directors in larger organizations and 30% are entrepreneurs. Within that 100% of directors in larger organizations and entrepreneurs, there's every industry, every level, every age, and that can be, well, a challenge to address that group with some content, but it can also be an opportunity because we get a wider scope of content to be able to present to them. The most popular events that we have that we've hosted is one was the Entrepreneur Summit, and that was at NatWest in 2024 in March. It's the biggest event we'd ever done. We had room for 180, but we always, because it was a free event, we thought there'll be a 50% drop off, and we attracted 350 registrations,
Wow.
not really envisaging that they would all turn up, which is a really great first caused slight logistical issues on the day with some room turnarounds. But yeah, that was a super popular event. And we had panels on angel investing, we had panels on women on boards, and we had a panel on that getting funding, so pitching. That was a very, very popular event. Another one of the most popular events we've ever done was at Field Fisher, the law firm in the city, and that was on the FCA diversity targets, which had come in, which is the Financial Conduct Authority setting kind of rules or goals for financial organizations to name their independent diversity targets. That was a very, very interesting session with Lily Searle and Ranjit Dinsa.
Fantastic.
I would say the most, we've also done, there's so many great events that we've done, and that's the main activity that we do is events, just to
Mm.
create a buzz, get people together. The reach and engagement on social media is amazing. I'm just wowed by it. But another
Mm.
one was women in STEM, and we had not very diverse, but three Cambridge engineers talking about their career in STEM, and we had some quite senior women in mining and very male dominated industries talking about their challenges and
Mm.
also their tips on how they got through the ranks and rose in those male dominated industries. That was very well received. I
Wow.
guess
So
what
this Yeah, so if I just jump in, sorry, because I think this, I love this. I love the events that you run. And I'm sort of what I'm picking out in terms of the themes here are, I'm sort of hearing it's about women breaking through in male dominated industries. It's about women getting on boards, women getting investment, which I know, women generally don't get as much investment as men when they pitch. And I love that there is that space to create the championing of women, but also providing them with the very practical strategies and ideas for them to champion themselves. And I want to just touch on something. If I just change direction slightly, you kind of touched on a theme which is very important to me as well, which is about raising your personal profile. And I know this is core to your work as well. So just talk to me about, I understand this, but also to our listeners, why is this so important, raising your personal profile? Why does this matter?
Victoria, I think you're a great example of someone who manages their profile and gets out there and really creates this caricature of yourself, as I try to do, that becomes popular. And it sounds it sounds weird, and some people might go, that's not really right, but actually that they're the profiles that do really well. Once you have an idea of this who you want to be and the purpose, find out who you want to be and be it like hell. They're the profiles that do really well, I think. And I'm talking mostly about LinkedIn because that's, I think, the main channel that, well, it's the main professional channel used by people today.
Mm.
Now, I also work with corporate companies to raise the profile of the brand through the people that work in the companies. So there's kind of two different aspects to having a personal brand. LinkedIn is an extremely powerful tool, I find. You have it's your shop window, this ability to say who you are and what you do, what you're about, your purpose in life and in your career. And there's also that news channel, the feed.
Mm.
And for people like you and me, for consultants and also for companies, that's the way that you get the word out about what you do and what you're about, and that's how people find you. It's not just a job search platform, as some people still think. It's really it's the water cooler. It's the way I communicate with the world, and sometimes the world communicates with me, even though, face-to-face events are a huge part of my life. I'd say it's you can't really, I think you can't really be a success without LinkedIn. A lot of people, maybe I'm going to get some people not agreeing with me about that,
Yeah.
but I think for me and women executives and male executives and for brands, it's a very powerful tool to really to get the message out.
And how do you, so I mean, very kindly, you sort of talked about, yes, I'm very conscious of my profile and how do I engage on LinkedIn. But I'm really curious, as somebody who's expert in this, who does this day in, day out for individuals, for brands, for organizations, what is the best way to engage with LinkedIn today? What is the best way to be raising your profile in a authentic way, shall we say, to be able to position yourself in the right way?
It's a really great question. And I think when you took the main thing that took out of that question is raising your profile. And it depends what you want, but for me, raising a profile means engagement. That may not always be the purpose of what some brands are asking you to do as a marketer. There may be other reasons, but for a personal profile, and for me, it's engagement. And the way that I find engagement for myself and for the brands I work with is through purpose. So it's finding that why. It's Daniel Goleman, it's old, it's talked about so much, like finding your why, but that's what the algorithm wants. And I suppose people as well, because the algorithm is based on what people are stopping and clicking on. And whether you work in, project controls or you work in women's rights, finding the why of what you do and talking about it in a meaningful human way is the best way to get engagement. And it doesn't matter about the topic. If you can find an angle for pretty much any industry, any job.
I
I
understand.
believe.
And I think that makes a lot of sense. The why part of this, the purpose absolutely resonates with me and what I talk about in my work. And just to be really granular a minute, because obviously listeners are based around the world, engagement means different things to different people. So is that about posting only, or are there different ways that you'd be suggesting to build your profile through engagement on LinkedIn?
I think you have to have the right static profile. Your about section has to talk about why you're doing what you're doing and who you are, not just what you do. The headline is how the search finds you. So that's got to be right. Your featured sections are really powerful section for you to highlight those events or activities in your life that are important to you. But the feed, the post is where the engagement happens. And I'm talking about impressions and clicks and comments. It's about people interacting with that post. And once we break it down to this like granular level, it sounds really a bit vapid, but it's actually it can be empowering, not just for you as a person talking about what you're doing and why you're doing it, but for about other people, you can inspire people, and people are inspired by those posts, whether they're videos or static photos. I would say photos of you are the best thing. And we people talk about the Facebookization of LinkedIn. I think it's a balance. I do think you have to talk about you yourself as a whole person on LinkedIn. I do, people who talk about their product and or their brand without that having some kind of deeper meaning, it's not going to go anywhere. So that's a little bit of, if you think that's Facebookization, that's what you're going to have to do if you want to get that reach. But yeah, it can be very fulfilling. It can change the course of people's careers, I'd say, knowing people, getting to know people through LinkedIn and being able to engage with their content.
Excellent. And I think, interestingly work with individuals, some of whom are very happy with this idea of raising their profile and being more visible, because ultimately this is what it's about, visibility, right? But I do know there are individuals who are not comfortable with this, who do feel like it feels like selling yourself too much. So what would you say to them? What's the kind of, I suppose, how would you kind of answer that question, that idea of for people who just don't feel comfortable with that idea?
I think those people that are not comfortable with it, and I work with them every day in companies that they're maybe like mid, what, at the mid or other tail end of their career, or even if they're at the beginning of their career and they're shy and they're reticent to talk about themselves because it's just not what they do in life. Those people, once we start posting, they become huge champions of it, and they often really understand the value after they start doing it. I
Mm.
think the reason someone won't want to do it at the beginning is because of it's a fear. It's a fear of putting yourself out there, like me not really wanting to do this podcast.
Aw.
Slightly
But here we
fearful of
are.
putting
No, here
myself out
we
there, you know.
are.
And when I do it on LinkedIn, it's the same, but it's just a different platform, right? So once we coach those people or we talk to those people about, really find out why they're doing what they're doing and they start doing it, I find a lot of converts. Some people, if they just don't want to do it, I guess they just don't want to do it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really interesting idea as well. And just treating it as an experiment, seeing like as a first step, you don't have to commit to it, but trying it out and then see what the results are, see how it works for you. So I think that's a really valuable advice there. So Vanessa, obviously LinkedIn is one way that people can raise their personal profile, but there are clearly other ways. So what are those other ways?
I would recommend for someone trying to raise their personal profile and networking, it's an age-old thing. Networking is an extremely powerful tool. Getting out there and meeting people, and you may end up speaking to someone, the same person, for a long time. You don't know why, but the point of you getting out and meeting people is the point. I find it enjoyable now. I didn't always. I do like it, and it's very useful, and I would recommend to anyone. That's they say to anyone, going for a board role or going for any type of role, networking is the number one way to make those contacts. So that's really number one. Speaking on a stage, in a panel or in a keynote that everybody wants to do, speaking, it's a very powerful way to have authority and get your point across. That's another way. I also recommend mainstream media, trade press, whatever company you're in, that there are publications out there who can help you to get your message out in a more crafted way, and that will be based on your goals and priorities. That's not to be ignored. That's often a larger and more focused channel than some other ways. They're the three ways. Yeah.
Fantastic. No, that's absolutely great. So that's really helpful to understand. Like there's different ways to do this. There's different ways to kind of get your personal brand out there, to raise your personal profile. And I'm interested in the kind of networking part of this because clearly there is a lot of virtual networking that happens still. There's a lot of live in-person networking. So just talk to me and talk to the listeners. Is there a difference in this, or do you think they're both as valuable?
It's a very good question, Victoria. Thank you. I know in COVID, what would we have done without virtual networking? It kept us
Right.
going. It was a fun and great way to keep connected and meet new people and kind of stop the boredom of being locked inside for years. So virtual networking definitely had its kind of like huge day then. At the IOD, we ran a series of webinars, and they were so popular because people were just coming online, and now we think, oh, that's feels like ages ago, and we're just it's always been this way, but it hasn't really. I think for me, it's got to be face-to-face networking now. I think I had a little, as like with most people, had a little bit of like virtual fatigue after the COVID happening, and events, live events, in-person events just became so popular because people wanted to be with each other in the same room. It was a novelty, and I don't really feel like that's worn off. I feel like events are just so it's really, really popular, and that's the
Mm.
one I enjoy. I don't think it's one's better or worse, but I just feel like connecting with someone face to face. Yeah, it's fun, and I feel like I get more out of it.
I understand. And it's so interesting because, some of the people that are listening to this, they will only have the opportunity for virtual networking by the nature of the global location of where they are and how they're doing the networking. But I agree, there's something very special about live events. I hosted my own live event only last week at the time of recording. And that was incredibly special, bringing people together in the room, 50 people, aspiring current future leaders. That feels really exciting, and the energy and the buzz around that, the when you get people talking and sharing ideas, there's something really powerful in this. I absolutely agree as well. So I think it's probably both, right? I think that's the answer, isn't it? It's both virtual and in person.
Well done, and congratulations on your best-selling book. It's
Oh, thank
fantastic. I
you.
think you must have some lessons to share on how to do that because it's kind of like the Holy Grail. But I just also want to say that not everywhere is London. London is like
Mm.
very, very obsessed with live events. It's a great place to be. I mean, we have a lot of them. We have some great ones. They're often really low cost. It's the place for in-person events. And I know not every location's like that, either because of geography or just because it's not the culture.
Absolutely. Now, we're coming, as we're recording this, as we're putting this episode out, we're coming towards the end of one year and coming towards another. And that's obviously a turning point when people start to think about what's coming up next, what's next year about, what's the future holding for leaders. I'm just really curious from the conversations you have, the leaders you meet, the IOD work volunteering that you do, the leaders that you meet through this great organization. I'm just really interested what you hear is coming up. What's on people's minds? What are they worried about? Or what are they excited about for 2026 and beyond?
Yes, thank you so much for that question. I think AI is the number one word, whether it's in terms of your personal growth and understanding more about it. I think that will never go astray, whether it's in terms of how people structure their day. There's lots of large companies using it now for like everyday tasks. That's the number one topic. I also think cybersecurity is another topic that is hugely popular right now, whether that's like expertise for people with that, like demand for people with those expertises, or it's just there and it's growing so much because of the nature of what we do. And I think the more online, digitally savvy, technologically enabled we get, those topics are going to become more important.
Excellent. Well, that's really, really great to hear. Thank you so much for sharing. I know you have quite a unique insight in the different roles that you sit in, hearing, what's on leaders' minds, what's happening within organizations right now. Vanessa, I'm really, this conversation has been brilliant. I've really enjoyed talking to you. And, there'll be some people here who have been listening to you, particularly talking about raising personal profile for themselves or for the company they work for, the organization. And they might be thinking, actually, they need some of this. What is the best way for people to be in touch with you and perhaps find out more about your work?
Oh, great. Yes, please do. I really haven't gone very deeply into what I do. I've given a bit of a taster, but I would love to talk to you if you've got any questions whatsoever, or if you've got a need to raise the profile of your brand or the people in your company or yourself. Please just reach out to me on LinkedIn. Yes, I'd love to hear from you. It's just me, Vanessa Dal Busco. I'm the only person with that name, so I hope to hear from you.
Excellent. And we'll put that all in the show notes, of course, so people can be in touch with you. But Vanessa, thank you so much for generously sharing your time here today, sharing your insights. I personally am a huge fan of what you're doing with the Glass Ceiling Group, with women's championing women in leadership, but also, your work that you're doing with kind of marketing and personal profile raising, I think is fantastic. So thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you very much, Victoria. Thanks for having me.
Lovely. And I look forward to seeing everybody next time.